Man seeks in woman not a person, but the personification of his own ideal. Let that sink in. Not a partner, not a companion, not even a human being, but a mirror, a projection, an escape from his own unfinished becoming. You see, Weininger argued that the real tragedy of the male spirit is not that he is deceived by women, but that he deceives himself through women. He does not fall in love with her as she is, but with the version of himself he imagines he will become once she chooses him. You live in that trap today, scrolling, chasing, performing. You believe that if you just get better, richer, stronger, more high value, you will finally be worthy to stand beside her. But Weininger's words cut deeper than most men dare to admit. He wrote, "The man who is dependent upon the woman for the valuation of his life has already betrayed himself. And there you are, brother, a slave, not to her, but to the fantasy of who you think you'll become once she validates you. You may have built your body, you may have built your business, you may have built your reputation, but the moment you built it for her, you started building your own prison, and here is the genius of the game. She never even asked you to. You did it yourself." Weininger warned that woman, in his terms, is the negation of individuality. He wrote, "Woman does not strive toward personality or eternity. She is purely of the moment, of the senses, of life's stream, without reflection or responsibility. While you, man, are the bearer of meaning, the seeker of the eternal, the one called to rise beyond mere instinct. But instead, you stoop down, not to meet her, but to lose yourself in her. You abandon your responsibility to become in exchange for the cheap pleasure of being desired. You dress it up as ambition. You lie to yourself and say you are on your mission. But deep down, if you are honest, you know you're still waiting, waiting to be chosen, waiting to be praised, waiting for her to complete the story you refuse to finish on your own. Only the man who needs no woman is truly free," Weininger declared. And there it is, the knife through every illusion you've built your life around. Because you have been taught since birth that needing her is noble, that sacrificing for her is heroic, that winning her is the prize. But what if the real prize is the man you become when you no longer need anyone to validate your existence? What if the true masculine awakening is not getting her, but no longer needing her to prove you are already enough? I am not here to flatter you. I am not here to entertain you. I am here to wake you up. So let me ask you personally, what empire are you building that would still matter if no woman ever looked your way again? If you cannot answer that, then understand this. You have not been living. You have been auditioning, and Weininger already saw you coming. You wake up in the morning not as a man living his mission, but as a man scanning the horizon of his life for a single approving glance. The hunger follows you. It lurks behind every ambition, every compliment, every accomplishment, and if you are honest, you'll admit it. Your life has been a long, desperate performance for an audience you cannot even name. Otto Weininger, writing in the quiet madness of his 20s, saw this disease in men long before the digital age weaponized it. He wrote, "Woman is to man as the world is to the philosopher. She is the temptation to descend from the heights of pure thought to the abyss of distraction. And you, my brother, have been descending all your life. You have turned the divine act of becoming into a cheap theater of validation. You have traded the sacred silence of your own mind for the applause of strangers you'll never meet. And worst of all, you've convinced yourself it's noble. But what if I told you that this addiction to external approval is not masculine energy, but feminine imitation? What if the man who seeks to be seen is not the creator, but the puppet? What if the real masculine spirit was never meant to perform, but to build, to stand alone, to speak without needing to be heard?" Weininger warned, "Woman lives in the reflected light of man. She possesses no will of her own. And here you are, a man reflecting the reflected light, living for likes, living for glances, living for approval. You have inverted the very nature you were born to embody. You were not made to shine because someone else approved of you. You were made to burn with a fire that needs no witness. Listen carefully. You do not become great by being chosen. You become great by choosing yourself, ruthlessly, unapologetically, without pause." Weininger did not hate women. His tragedy was that he understood men better than men understand themselves. He saw the sickness that creeps into every masculine heart, the fear of standing alone. the terror of building something that might never be recognized, the agony of realizing that the world might never clap for you, and so you compromise. You shrink. You chase. You become small enough to fit in someone else's story, rather than daring to live your own. But here's the brutal truth. The truth that will either free you or destroy you. The moment you need her to validate your existence, you have already surrendered your kingdom. Weininger wrote, "The tragedy of man is not that he loves woman, but that he loves the idea of being loved by her more than he loves himself. And that is why you're stuck. That is why you feel hollow. That is why no achievement satisfies you. Because you have built your entire life as a stage, and you are still waiting for her to stand and clap. But here's the secret. Weininger tried to whisper to us all, there is no audience, there is no applause, there is no validation coming, and when you finally realize that, you become free. You become the man who builds, not because he is seen, but because he must build. You become the man who speaks not to be heard, but because the truth demands to be spoken. You become the man who chooses himself, crowns himself, and carries the unbearable weight of being his own authority. So I ask you again, brother, who are you when no one is watching? Because until you answer that, you are still performing. There is a reason most men today feel like something is missing. They don't have the words for it, but they feel it gnawing at their spirit every time they scroll through another feed, chasing the next hit of attention, the next distraction, the next illusion. Weininger saw it before it became an epidemic. He called it the feminine within the masculine, a silent disease where a man trades his calling to create for the comfort of consumption. He wrote, "The man who ceases to create becomes the slave of his senses." Look around you. The modern world is a temple to your senses. Screens, noise, dopamine on demand, 1,000 empty pleasures dressed as progress. You have been offered the whole world, but at the cost of your soul. You were not made to consume endlessly. You were made to build, to carry weight, to stand under pressure until you become something unbreakable. But no one tells you that. Instead, they hand you an endless menu of substitutes, likes instead of legacy, attention instead of achievement, validation instead of victory, and you take the bait, because being chosen feels easier than choosing yourself. But here's the trap you refuse to face. Anything that comes too easily was never truly yours to begin with. Weininger saw this in every man who surrenders to comfort. He warned that the man who lives to be chosen has already abandoned his masculine destiny to carry the unbearable tension of standing alone. He wrote, "The man who will not endure solitude will forever live on borrowed meaning. And here you are, terrified of your own silence. You fill it with noise. You fill it with scrolling. You fill it with her. Because being alone with yourself feels unbearable. But that unbearable feeling, that is where your real work begins. You were not born to live in comfort. You were born to confront the weight of existence itself. You were born to stand on the edge of meaninglessness and dare to build meaning with your own two hands. Not because someone asked you to, not because someone will clap for you, but because you cannot bear to live one more day as a spectator in your own life."